Movie Mavens. Welcome back to another video on the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey and I put the B in movies. I hope you are having a wonderful week. I don't have much for Bailey Babbles today, really, but I do just want to say, please register to vote if you're not registered to vote. Please take care of each other. Please stay informed, but also, Pudge is rolling around on the couch while I'm trying to make a serious statement. So this is a great representation of the juxtaposition of my life. Are you done? Are you done? Thank you. Stay informed, but obviously, also give yourself a little bit of time to relax and take a break from doom scrolling. Do things that make you smile, but again, stay informed. Please, for the love of God, register to vote, because scary things are happening, y'all. And I hope that for just a few minutes a week, I can kind of act as a form of escapism for all of you, because, I'm scared too. I get it. And so that's why I love doing this, because it is, some time every week that I just get to hang out with all of you. And so I hope that it also helps you feel a little less alone in the crazy hellscape that we're currently all living in. So, on that very uplifting note, let's go ahead and dive into this week's blog roundup. And so, as always, if you are new to the channel, hi, hello. The B Movies channel is a continuation of the B Movies blog, which you can find, it's just bmovies.blog. It's also always linked in the description box below, and we release pieces every Monday through Friday around 10 a.m. CST. As I always say, sometimes I get into it with WordPress, but it will be around that time unless I post otherwise. Sometimes I'll get a really good idea for a piece at the last minute, so we may post on a Saturday instead, but just know 5 pieces a week, usually Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. CST. You can also subscribe over on WordPress to get those sent directly to your inbox, and if not, bmovies.blog, they'll be there waiting for you. So this week over on the B Movies blog, on Monday, we followed up with some of my favorite cinematic couples to see where they are now. Obviously, it's fictitious. Obviously, it's just me showing off my comedy writing chops. But that was a really fun one to write. That piece also led me to find out that if you search Torrance and Missy on Google, the first thing that pops up is the piece I wrote for Hyperreal Film Club that is basically gay fan fiction. So, I guess my claims to fame currently are Bo Burnham's inside and gay Bring It On fanfiction. And by God, if those are the two things that I'm known for, I think that's a pretty accurate representation. So on Tuesday, we talked about some of my favorite sketch comedy shows. A lot of disclaimers in that one because I think the Amanda show, Amanda Bynes is so talented, and, with all that too, all of those kids were so talented, and sketch comedy's hard. I love comedy writing, but performing comedy, I had a brief stint doing stand-up, but other than that, sketch comedy's hard to perform, but unfortunately with everything, with a certain man I'm not even going to name because he's not worth my breath, and other people, I just did not feel comfortable including them on that list. If you've seen Quiet on Set, you will know what I'm talking about. I think the things that those kids had to go through was absolutely atrocious and horrendous. Allegedly. And then again, I loved the Chappelle Show in high school. The Prince story that they made into a sketch, that's based on a true Prince story, is one of my favorite things of all time, because if you know me, I love Prince. I love Prince. Prince is one of my favorite artists of all time. I know every word to every song on the Purple Rain soundtrack. But I can't condone in any way what he's been saying about the trans community and other things. I think that that's abhorrent, and I can't promote his work. I'm sorry, I won't. So, but there are some good ones on there. I Think You Should Leave is great if you haven't watched it. The Kroll Show was wonderful I think it lasted for 3 seasons. There's some really good stuff on there, and like I say in the piece too, just know some of this is really old, so there are parts that don't hold up. That's why like I didn't put stuff like Mad TV on there, because we all know there's stuff that doesn't hold up, but you do have some good options. Um, on Wednesday, I got on my soapbox and talked about the importance of physical media. And and I say this in the piece, like, I know that everyone can't afford to buy physical media. Totally understand that. Again, I have been there so many times in my life. But I do think that, I mean, I even am pro bringing back the video store to give people, some cheaper options rather than having to like pay for movies on demand or, subscribe to streamers, because, growing up, Blockbuster had rent one, get ones. There were promo codes, if you were promo codes, were there like promotions that they ran. Tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial, woof. You earned membership points, you got free rentals on your birthday, and so I'm even pro bringing back like video stores, because I am fortunate to live somewhere where we have one, but it's pretty far from my house, and we know I don't drive, so I unfortunately don't get to go really, but I don't want a lot of these like indie movies we grew up with to get lost, and so I am pro physical media, and I get on my soapbox. On Thursday, we did a spotlight on Oz Perkins. I wanted to do a spotlight, obviously, after Long Legs. We all know I loved Long Legs. I rewatched The Black Coat's Daughter 2, which, like, I don't know I don't know why I didn't like it the first time. The Black Coat's Daughter, aka February, you might know it as February, that movie rules. I loved it after watching it again. So it was fun to kind of dive back into his other films, because I'll even stand Gretel and Hansel, man. Like, they're brother and sister, not stand them together, stand the film, just to clarify on that. I even think it's a decent movie. I'm not a big thing of I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in Your House. It's my least favorite. I don't think it's bad. I just think it would kind of be better as a play, honestly. But yeah, that was fun to dive into. And then Friday, which we're talking about this today, I famously don't have a Letterboxd. I'll get into why. It's not like anything pretentious, I promise. But I thought it would be fun to do my hypothetical Letterboxd 4 that would live at the top of my profile if I had one. So just to recap, this week over on the bmovies blog, Where Are They Now? Sketch comedy shows, the importance of physical media, Oz Perkins Spotlight, and my Letterboxd 4. So for today's Bite Size Sunday, so for those who don't know, I try not to overlap on my personal Instagram. If you follow me over there, I've been doing my one of my big resolutions for this year was to do the movie a day challenge, where you post about a movie every single day. And I can't believe we are 200 deep at this point, which is crazy for a lot of reasons. But I try not to overlap Bite Size Sunday and B Movies with my movie a day. I try to do separate ones, just to kind of, so y'all can get my opinions on multiple things, and you're not just reading the same thing over and over. But I am making an exception for this Bite Size Sunday because A, it was my 200th movie, and B, I think this is really cool, and I really want to talk about it a little bit more. So we are going to overlap. And so that's a hint for you all. It's the same movie I talked about yesterday on my personal Instagram. But we are going to cover the same thing, just because I want to talk about it a little bit more. So the hint for today is Caver, I Barely Know Her. And yes, I'm not pleased with myself. I'm a little pleased with myself. But be on the lookout for that tomorrow, because I do really want to talk about this piece of content, because I think it's very cool. So with all of the housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and start with today's deep dive, which is just, if you're new to the channel, this is just a section where we either talk more in depth about a piece of the week or something related to those pieces of the week. So like, for example, one week we had a big nostalgia week over at on the B Movies blog. So I talked about like 10 snacks that I would love to see come back from my childhood. So things like that. So today we're going to talk about my Letterboxd 4. So as I mentioned up top, I famously don't have a Letterboxd. And people have asked me over the years to start one. People always ask me when they find out that I'm a movie lover, if I have a Letterboxd. I don't. And it's not because I don't think I'm above it or anything like that. It's not that. It's just, I feel like y'all hear my cinematic opinions in so many places already. You heard them on Hyperreal Film Club. You hear them on the B Movies blog. You hear them on my Instagram. You hear them here on the channel. And so I feel like, do y'all really need to hear my opinion in another spot? 2, I've been doing the Movie a Day Challenge this year especially, so I have a running list of all of the movies that I've been seeing. And then thirdly, I tend to get really long-winded talking about pop culture. This should not be, this should be the least surprising statement I've ever made on this channel. And so for me, I just don't think a Letterboxd makes sense. I'm not saying never, but I'm just saying, y'all hear me talk about movies, y'all see what I'm watching, and I'm like, do y'all really need another avenue to hear me talk about movies? And so I decided to kind of compromise because someone just asked me the other day if I had a Letterboxd. And I was like, okay, so what I'll do is kind of for now, I'll give y'all what my top 4 would be on my Letterboxd profile. And it was a lot harder than I thought. There were I really had to sit there and think. Just to kind of give y'all an idea of a few that got left on the cutting room floor. Zodiac was a big contender for me. I love David Fincher's Zodiac. Love that movie. We all know I love the Blair Witch Project, which again, hi Lionsgate, hi hello. I think you owe some friends some royalties and some recognition. Cough cough. So that was a big one. Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion was another big one. But I finally whittled it down to my 4. And I think 2 of them are not very surprising. 2 of them might be, not in the sense that I love the movie, but in the sense that I don't know if they would necessarily be the other 2 of the 4 that y'all would immediately associate with me or think that would be in my top. So I'm going to give you a little breakdown, like why I chose each movie. Again, for the first 2 should be very obvious. But let's go ahead and dive into these would be my Letterboxd top 4. So first off is Scream, which again, not very surprising knowing me. And it's because Wes Craven brought meta to the mainstream with Scream. And we'd had things like Student Bodies, and I would even argue the movie Wacko to a certain extent. They existed, but they were more so comedies. They weren't meta commentary. They didn't have like the meta commentary on the genre while also being a horror movie. And so just nobody did it like Wes Craven. And so Scream, like, it has some comedic elements to it, like with Matthew Lillard saying one of my favorite / what I think is one of the most underrated lines in Scream, which is, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. Like, you have those little pieces, but it's not as slapstick as like Student Bodies or Wacko. It's like sexy and smart and scary, and it's also queer-coded because you have things like Billy and Stu's relationship, which is extremely queer-coded. And just without Scream, we wouldn't have this level of commentary to work off of within the horror space. And I would even argue Sidney Prescott created a new version of The Final Girl just like Laurie Strode did before her. And I just think it's one of the most influential horror movies of all time. And so I think it's more than earned its place in one of my top spots. It's a movie I can watch over and over again and not get sick of. I've done a lot of Scream cosplays over the year, from Drew Barrymore to Billy, which that's one of my favorite ones I've ever done, is that Billy Loomis cosplay, and people went wild over that Billy Loomis cosplay. That's one of my favorite things I've ever done. And so that's why it's in my top. I just realized I'm wearing a Ghostface shirt today, so that's perfect. Next up, not another surprise, Halloween 78. The reason that this one is in my top four is because John Carpenter revolutionized the slow burn. He and Deborah Hill crafted one of the most iconic horror villains and movies of all time on this string shoe budget. And John Carpenter gave us one of the most recognizable and original scores. Everyone knows the do 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 do, and just to hear those couple of notes start and immediately recognize that, someone who works in marketing, that kind of branding is insane. And Laurie Strode, again, harkened in this new era of Final Girl. And I'm not saying, before anyone comes for me, Laurie Strode was not the first Final Girl. That is not what I'm saying. I am just saying that, like, Laurie Strode, you can track different iterations of the Final Girl throughout horror history, right? And so I just think that she heralded this new era of, like, the 80s Final Girl. I think she heralded people like Kirsty from Hellraiser, and Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, which we all know controversially I prefer Alice, but even Alice, like they each just herald in these new Final Girls. And then I would also argue we wouldn't have the likes of The Strangers without Halloween, because for those who don't know, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode were not supposed to be related. What John Carpenter had in mind for this franchise originally was to be an anthology, and that's kind of why Halloween 3 exists how it does, because it still exists within this Haddonfield universe, but it's a different story. And so with Halloween 2, that's when the reveal happens of Michael being Laurie's brother, and see, that was never supposed to be the case. And so if you take that element out, you get movies like The Strangers, where it's like, why did you do this? Because you were home. Michael is just, for some reason, obsessed with Laurie Strode. There's no rhyme or reason. And so imagine just having this horrific entity stalking you for no reason. And then we also obviously wouldn't have, like, Jason Voorhees without Michael Myers, because Friday the 13th, came out after Halloween and was heavily influenced by Halloween. And so it's also just one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie so much, and so again, not a big surprise. So third up, we have House on Haunted Hill, which is the 1959 version. So I love this movie, and it has Vincent Price, first of all, so, like, how can you not? Secondly, like, there's this level of camp to it that I really appreciate for, like, a 50s horror movie. Like, the riffing between Frederick and Annabelle is next level. When they are in that bedroom scene, next level. It's also a William Castle movie, and so there were all sorts of gimmicks in the theater. They were, like, flying the skeletons through the theater and things. We all know I love a good gimmick. And then it's just really ahead of its time. Like, we have from the top, there's a breaking of the fourth wall. There's basically, like, a record scratch of, like, you're probably wondering how I got here. You have the talking head shots. It's just really ahead of its time. And it's only 75 minutes long, which is nuts to think about now. And so I think it's another influential one. It's another one that I love to watch. I never get sick of watching it. I usually watch it a couple times a year at least. And so for me, it was definitely up there. And so lastly, and I think this one might be the most surprising, that would be my top four, but I had to choose Promising Young Woman. It has nothing to do with Bo Burnham before anyone says anything. I just think it's an almost perfect movie. I think the cast is flawless. I think that ending is just chef's kiss down to the song choice. And speaking of which, like, the soundtrack is next level. That, like, violin orchestral version of Toxic when she's getting ready to go to the bachelor party. Come on. Stars Are Blind. Like, come on. And every time I watch it, I love it more. And, also, like, Saltburn was one of my favorite movies of last year, and so, like, Emerald Fennell is 2 for 2 for me. And so those would be my hypothetical Letterboxd 4. Again, like, I had to leave a lot on the cutting room floor. Like, Zodiac was, like, this close. It was, like, this close, because I love that movie. So, yeah, those would be my Letterboxd top 4. And again, I'm not Never say never about a Letterboxd top 4, but about me getting a Letterboxd, but those would be my top 4. So next up, let's dive into this week's special features, which this section is reserved for if you're new. Updates on our favorite analog horror series, our favorite horror ARG series, or just content that I want to talk about, but I may not necessarily write a piece about. And so this week, let's start off with Brea Grant's new horror short, MLM. And MLM, it's satire of LuLaRoe that features a company named La La Leggings. And so the short starts out with an informational video that's like so similar to the LuLaRoe informational videos, it's insane. Which I'm going to pause now, and if you're not familiar with LuLaRoe, watch Lula Rich on Amazon Prime. It's a mini-series. It's bonkers. I have watched it multiple times. I can't get enough of it. So just, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I would recommend watching that before diving into this short. So let's carry on, but I digress. So we meet Sarah, who is this new La La Leggings consultant, who is going live to showcase her leggings, but it's clear she's struggling to make sales. So she calls her friend Molly, who's also on what's called an upline. So that means like Molly's above her and recruited her. So like Molly also gets money off of what Sarah does. So she calls up Molly, who tries to like pep her up, and then like starts beginning to list all of the consequences of Sarah not making like her sales quota. And they start out like it's normal and it's just kind of funny, where it's like, you don't get to go on the cruise, you don't get to do this. And then it like, Molly casually throws in that's like, her husband's junk is going to turn into a bird. And Sarah's like, what? And she's like, yeah, but like, don't worry, he's not going to notice, you're only going to notice. And Sarah's like, what? And Molly's like, yeah, did you not watch all the instructional videos? And Sarah's like, there's like hundreds of them. And so what Molly says comes to fruition. And so Sarah starts trying to desperately sell her leggings. And so she's still not getting anywhere. So she calls Molly again. And Molly is like, oh yeah, and you didn't meet your sales quota today too, by the way. So everything you eat that you love will turn into glitter. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it took me a second to like wrap my head around that. And so it's sincerely, anytime she tries to drink or eat anything that she likes, it turns into glitter in her mouth and she has to spit it out. So it's crazy. And so then Sarah, like, at this point is like fed up, right? She's like over it. So she tries to throw away her leggings. And so Molly shows up and is like, what are you doing? And Sarah's like, I'm done. And so then Molly politely tells her that the Axeman is now going to arrive. And since Molly is on Sarah's upline, Molly's also in danger. So the two try to like do like a little collab and sell. And they get to where they only need to sell one more pair of leggings when the founder of La La Leggings, none other than Miss Barbara Crampton herself, because of course it is, because, you know, of course I want an MLM short that begins and ends with Barbara Crampton, pops in and decides to tell the girls that Sarah's not an ambassador, and so they should probably enjoy their last few minutes alive. This short is so much fun. And something I love about Brea Grant's horror content is she has such a unique voice. And I love it. I love just about everything she's done. And we also know I love Barbara Crampton, who, you know, is scattered throughout as the founder of La La Leggings. And so I definitely recommend checking this one out. You can watch all of the shorts it's part of the Etheria Film Night over on Shudder until I believe August 15th. It's streaming for the next like basically month. And if you aren't familiar with what Etheria Film Night is, it's this group of horror shorts that's all female directed, and they range from fantasy, sci-fi, horror. There's like, I think almost 2 hours worth on Shudder. And so this is the last one, I believe, in the set. So I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It's very, very fun. So next up, the second thing I want to talk about today, and the last thing, because we have a little bit of a short one, I want to talk about Paranormal Paranoids / Shelby Oaks. So, in honor of Neon's announcement that they are going to be distributing the film Shelby Oaks, I want to dive into like this analog horror slash horror ARG that started everything. So, we will get into the details of everything, but we're going to start by talking just about Jess the Paranoid and how this whole thing started. So, about 3 years ago, there was a YouTube channel and a Twitter account that popped up called Jess the Paranoid. And she started asking other people if they remembered the show Paranormal Paranoids. It was this like seemingly innocent ghost hunting YouTube channel who just suddenly stopped uploading. So this is where the whole Shelby Oaks thing begins. So Paranormal Paranoids consisted of Riley and her 3 friends, as well as her sister who comes kind of in and out. They seem to be amateur ghost hunters, but it seems as though their paranormal escapades turn sinister. And so in the handful of videos on Jess's channel, you have like some vlogs, a couple videos that seem like maybe that they shouldn't have been uploaded, that someone uploaded them without the knowledge of the group. You have some of their ghost hunting adventures. And then you have the last video before they were going to visit Shelby Oaks. And at the same time as the video releases, you had Just the Paranoid on Twitter was having these weird and almost nefarious Twitter interactions with someone named Noir, who was basically alluding to the fact that something bad happened to the Paranormal Paranoids, but that they had insider knowledge. And so it was kind of speculated that this account may be Riley's sister Mia. But what happened was, these videos are so good. And I will tag Just the Paranoid's channel so that you can watch all of them. These videos were so good that they wound up getting picked up for a film adaptation. And so, right now, I'm kind of unsure because I've not seen Shelby Oaks, which again, we'll get to the movie in just a second. To me, I think it's a little unclear because I want to go in as blind as I can about this movie. I'm not sure if it is a continuation of like where the series left off, or if this is going to be a continuation and then we'll have more like YouTube videos and things like that. So I'm not sure if it's just going to bridge some things, if this is going to be the end, but there have not been any updates like from Jess the Paranoid in a long time. And we knew that she was going to help on the film. So what happened was, these like when you watch them, they're so good. Like I would watch like an Everyman Hybrid level of content like this. It's so good. So what happened was, YouTuber Chris Stuckman was selected to direct the film. And then not only Chris Stuckman, but Mike Flanagan executive produced it, I believe, and Aaron B. Kuntz is also involved. And so if you're not familiar with Aaron B. Kuntz, he's done stuff like, oh my god, I just like completely blanked. He's a very good horror director, like Scare Package. There's a horror movie I love on Shudder where it's a girl, help me out, y'all. It's these 2 girls basically get stuck together in like this apocalypse. One is like a Bible thumper, and the other one, she is like a dancer, like how Maxine is in Maxine. How Maxine is in good God. How Maxine is, where it's like one of the ones where it's like the little room and people can watch you dancing. I can't think to save my life, but I love that movie. And Mike Flanagan, you know, Haunting of Hill House, Midnight Mass, everything. Yeah, all the Netflix things, now about to be all the Prime things. And so it was one of my most anticipated releases, because ever since I found out about this series a while back, I was like, oh heck yeah, I can't wait to see what they do. And so Chris Stuckman, and I'll link his channel and the announcement video, he announced a couple days ago that Neon had acquired the rights to Shelby Oaks, and so they will be doing an international release but it will be released in theaters in the US next year. And so they're currently like working on the marketing plan and the release plan. And so I'm very excited because in the video he addresses kind of what I was scared of too, where it was just going to be like dumped on a streamer, or it was going to just be left on VOD and no one was ever going to get to see it. And so, or like, you know, you were going to have to be in the loop to know it existed, and it was just going to be like a word of mouth thing. So I'm very excited that this is actually getting a theatrical release. I'm very excited for it to come out next year. The fact that Neon is releasing it, I think, at least to me, says a lot. So I'm very excited. But I will link just the Paranoids channel below so you can watch the videos. I will tag Chris Steckman's channel and the announcement so you can see. Please subscribe to both of them. And yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited, and definitely, like, I will go see it. I will review it in some capacity, be it on the channel or in a full piece, depending on what I have to say. But I'm very excited. So last up, it's time for subtitles, which are just little pieces of pop culture news from around the internet. So I'm going to start out on a little bit of a somber note and say RIP to Shannon Doherty and Bob Newhart. They both passed away this week. Rest in peace to both of them. Obviously, I grew up with Shannon Doherty, 90210, Heathers, Charmed, and Bob Newhart, you know, watching my grandparents, Elf, Legally Blonde 2. So rest in peace to both of them. So next up, Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas are directing a new musical comedy called Power Ballad that has been officially picked up by Lionsgate. Interested to see how that works. The highly anticipated, which I said, the highly anticipated Shelby Oaks film has officially been picked up by Neon for distribution. Mike Flanagan will be executive producing. Sorry, I started, my brain mixed up lines for a second. The title for the latest Final Destination has been announced to be Final Destination Bloodlines, and it will arrive in March, officially. The Collected, which is the third movie in the Collector cult trilogy, is allegedly finally happening, and that is coming straight from the director. So if you don't know, there's the Collector and the Collection, which are kind of like just cool, like grimy horror movies. The first one has, one of the stepsisters, it's Madeline, I can't think of her last name, but she was in The Nanny, and she's one of the stepsisters of Cinderella story. She's in the first one, which is wild. But they're just kind of cool, fun, you know, Saw-y horror movies, and the third one has been just in limbo for a very long time, but it sounds like The Collected is finally coming. The first images of the Rosemary's Baby prequel, Apartment 7A, have been released. I am so pumped. That will be out in October on Paramount Plus. Very excited about that. Very excited. October's getting stacked, and I'm very excited. Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, Tim Sharp, and Aristal Athari have all joined the cast of Megan 2.0, which I'm very excited about. Production on Stranger Things 5 has officially begun, with the Duffer Brothers teasing us a lot with some behind-the-scene images and videos. Very excited for that. Maya Hawke made a comment a while back that basically it's like 8 movies, like the episodes are going to be very long. And with how good Stranger Things 4 was, I'm really hoping Stranger Things 5 lives up to the challenge. And speaking of the Duffer Brothers, they're officially producing a new psychological horror series called Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen by Haley Z. Boston for Netflix. So that will be up after Stranger Things 5. Speaking of producing, Ryan Gosling will be producing a new zombie comedy called I Used to Eat Brains, Now I Eat Kale, which I'm very intrigued by. The first trailer for A24's A Different Man has been released, starring Sebastian Stan. I think the premise is very interesting. It's being called like a dark comedy / kind of a mind F. So, and I mean, it's A24, so we know I will be seated. Midnight Murder Club, a horror first-person shooter game, will be coming out this fall from Valen Studios. And then, last but not least, there's a new FNAF game on the way called Into the Pit. I know that was announced a while back. It somehow, what I do is I take screenshots for my scripts throughout the week, And so what happened is I took a screenshot and it just got lost in the shuffle. But there is a new FNAF game coming out called Into the Pit. So I think that is all for us this week. So feel free to follow me on Instagram at Lisa_Frankenstein_. Feel free to follow Elliot on Instagram at reading.with.red. Follow us on Instagram at bmovieschannel, same as our YouTube. That is where those Bite-Sized Sunday reviews live exclusively. So if you want those, follow us over there. We also post every day, basically. So give us a follow. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. It's free. Give us a like if you feel so inclined, and leave a comment if you're feeling frisky. So I think on that note, all that's left to do is fade to black.